Over 2 weeks ago, I have started a series of videos where I explain different types of UK work visas, and I have subdivided them into 5 major categories. The first one is where you can apply for a work visa without a job offer. The second one is where you need to have an overseas employer in order to enter the UK and work here, and this is for global mobility applicants mainly. The third one is for those who would like to work in the UK on a temporary basis. Number 4 is for those who would like to enter the UK in order to establish a business. And video number 5 covers all other immigration categories. This is video number 3, where I will be concentrating on the temporary UK work visa routes. So here I'm going to explain the purpose of these UK work visa routes, and also I'm going to explain the main eligibility requirements. If you would like to remain in the UK on a more permanent basis, so if you'd like to stay here for more than 2 years, you should consider applying under other immigration categories, which I've explained in my previous videos, or which I'll be explaining in my next video number 4 and video number 5. For now, let us talk about the UK temporary work visa routes. Okay, let us talk about temporary UK work visas. As you can see, there are 6 types of temporary UK work visas. So the first one is called a seasonal worker. Let's have a look at this particular type. This is a popular route for those who would like to come to the UK to do some seasonal horticulture or poultry production work. A person on the seasonal worker route can stay for a maximum period of 6 months in any 12 months period of time. And that is if they intend to work in the horticulture sector. If they're a poultry production worker, they can stay for a period of time beginning no earlier than 2nd of October and ending no later than 31st of December each year. And you need to apply for a poultry seasonal worker visa by 15th of November each year. And you can apply for horticultural seasonal worker visas at any time of the year. These are relatively straightforward applications. To succeed, you will need to have a Home Office registered and approved sponsor who issued a valid certificate of sponsorship within no more than 3 months from the date of your visa application, and you will need to have at least £1,270 in your bank account, and the amount will need to be there for at least 28 consecutive days. By the way, guys, just to be clear, day 28 has to be within 31 days of applying for this visa. You don't need to meet the financial requirements if you have an A-rated sponsor who is willing to provide financial support, and in these circumstances they will need to very clearly state so in the certificate of sponsorship. There is a box they need to tick which says that sponsor certifies maintenance. So in this case they will need to tick the sponsor certifies maintenance box, and you'll find this under the additional data provisions. And also, guys, I wanted to show you what is included in the horticultural sector. So this is a list of all activities which may be undertaken by the workers in the horticulture sector. If you would like to work in this area, you're very welcome to pause this video just to see if the activity which you would like to undertake is on this list. And these are the activities in the poultry production section. And here, as you can see, I've given you this together with the codes because they may be quite important when we discuss this section as to how much you need to earn in order to succeed in this application. So let us have a look at this. I should start by saying that all applicants will need to earn at least £10 and 42 pence per hour. Secondly, if you'd like to work in the poultry production sector, remember I showed you the codes before. So if you intend to work in any of the occupations with these codes, then your hours of employment will need to be at least 32 per week. So it has to be a full-time job. And finally, if you intend to work as a butcher or as a bird or game dresser with the codes 5431 or 5433, your rate of payment will need to be the equivalent of at least £26,200 per year. Okay, so these were our very straightforward rules for seasonal workers. Now let us have a look at the next category, which is called government authorized exchange worker. This particular route is for workers who would like to come to the UK on one of the approved schemes. I found over 35 schemes which may be appropriate, and if you're curious to see the list, because it's quite a lengthy list, you're very welcome to visit my website, and in the article I provide you with the links to the list of all the programs which are currently available. And as you can see, the rules are very similar to that of a seasonal worker. You'll need to have a government authorized, licensed and approved by the Home Office sponsor who will issue a certificate of sponsorship. And in case you are wondering what the certificate of sponsorship is, this is not a paper document, because a number of people think that this is a paper document. No, this is not. This is a digital document which contains all the information about the sponsor, and also about you if you intend to apply, and also about the job you intend to undertake. And the certificate of sponsorship will also need to have information about whether or not your sponsor will be willing to support you financially. If they are, they will need to specifically state so in the certificate of sponsorship. If they are not providing you with financial support, then you will need to show that you'll have at least £1,270 in your bank account for 28 consecutive days, and day 28, as I said before, will have to be within 31 days of you applying for a visa. The next category is called a creative worker temporary route. This is a relatively new UK work visa route. This will allow the applicants to come and work within the creative sector. A creative worker is someone who can make a unique contribution to the UK's culture. For example, you can apply under this route as an artist, dancer, musician or entertainer, or as a model contributing something to the UK's fashion industry. If your application is successful, it is highly likely that your initial leave, your entry clearance, or a visa which is granted outside the UK will be granted for 12 months. However, you will have a right to extend your entry clearance, your leave, your visa for up to 2 years if you still continue working for the same sponsor. Also here, it is important to note that unlike the previous two routes which we've just discussed, the seasonal worker and the government authorized exchange routes, this route allows you to bring your dependents, your spouse and your dependent children under the age of 18. Another unique feature for this particular route is that it allows non-visa nationals to travel to the UK without obtaining a visa. Usually when someone wants to travel to the UK, even though their country is not on a visa national list, they have to apply for prior entry clearance. So they can only travel to the UK without applying for a visa first if they want to visit this country, if they want to come here for the purposes of that of a general visitor. However, the creative worker route is an exception. So if the applicant from a non-visa national country has got a valid certificate of sponsorship which is issued by the Home Office approved sponsor, then in these circumstances they can travel without applying for visa first. Another very important requirement for non-visa nationals traveling without a prior entry clearance but with the valid certificate of sponsorship is that they'll need to prove that the gap between the engagements is no more than 3 months, and because if there is, they will be expected to leave the country and they will be expected to re-enter the country with a new certificate of sponsorship. So just make sure that you are booked and the gap between the performances is no more than 3 months. And as with other visa applications, you'll need to meet a number of requirements. The first one is you'll need to have a certificate of sponsorship, and as we already established, this is a digital document and it will need to have a reference number, and also you'll need to be paid a minimum salary. You'll need to meet the financial requirements, and once again, that is unless your sponsor wishes to sponsor you in this application. If they do, they need to very clearly state so in the certificate of sponsorship and in the application for this certificate. If you're sponsoring yourself, you'll need to have the amount of at least £1,270 in the bank account for at least 28 days. The religious worker. This is for you if you would like to come to the UK to support the activities of religious institutions by conducting some religious work, such as working in a religious order or undertaking non-pastoral work for a religious organization. If your application is successful, you can remain in the UK for up to 2 years. That is why this is a temporary worker route. And as with creative workers, you can bring your dependents with you, your spouse and your dependent children under the age of 18. However, guys, before applying, you have to make an assessment and decide whether the temporary worker route is more suitable than the Tier 2 Minister of Religion route. Because if your engagement in the UK involves leading a congregation in performing rites and rituals and preaching the essentials of the creed as its core duty, then this religious temporary worker route is not for you, and it will be more suitable for you to apply under this Tier 2 Minister of Religion. The only downside to applying for a long-term route is the English language requirement, because rather exceptionally, I've seen this only with the students' applications. These applicants under the long-term Minister of Religion route will need to show the English language proficiency at the level of B2 as opposed to B1. Of course, you don't need to be concerned about the English language requirement if you are from the majority English-speaking country. And as with all temporary worker routes, you'll need to show that you have a valid certificate of sponsorship. By the way, this can only be used once, and this certificate of sponsorship will need to be issued by the Home Office, a registered, licensed and approved Home Officer, and they have to be on the register. If you would like to see the list of the sponsors, once again, you're very welcome to check my article where I provide you with a link to this register. And if your sponsor does not provide financial support, then you'll need to show that you have at least £1,270 for 28 consecutive days. And you had it in your bank account for at least 28 consecutive days. The charity worker. The charity worker route is for a person who wants to come to the UK and to do some voluntary work for up to 12 months. They will need to be invited by the Home Office registered and approved sponsor. By the way, who is registered to invite people under the charity worker route? So it's not enough for them to be on the register. They have to be registered and recognized as the organization which can invite charity workers to work for them. They'll need to have a certificate of sponsorship which was issued within no more than 3 months from the date of the application. As well as you will need to prove that your work will contribute directly to the achievement or advancement of the sponsor's charitable purpose. And it has to be voluntary. You should not get money for this apart from very reasonable expenses. And if you would like to see what is included in very reasonable expenses, you are very welcome to visit the National Minimum Wage Act 1998, where they give a definition of that. And also, you should not be filling a permanent position for someone else. And when you are making the application, the Home Office will check if you meet the genuineness requirement. So in other words, that you genuinely intend to undertake the role for which you are being sponsored. And additionally, you need to prove that you do not intend to work somewhere else. Let us have a look at the final immigration route in this category, in this temporary worker category. This is called international agreement worker. The international agreement route is for a person who wants to come to the UK to provide a service covered under the international law, such as private servants in diplomatic households or employees or overseas governments and international organizations. This is a rather small niche immigration route, but still I think it is important for those who would like to apply to know the rules. If your application is successful, you will be able to stay in the UK for up to 2 years, and you can bring your partner and your dependent children, those who are not married, who are financially dependent on you, and those who are under the age of 18. Unfortunately, as with all other temporary routes, you will not be able to settle if you enter the UK. So as I said, you can only stay here for up to 2 years. And the financial requirements are exactly the same as for the previous routes which we've discussed. So you'll need to have a certificate of sponsorship issued by the Home Office registered and licensed sponsor. They will need to be on the register of the Home Office sponsors, and they will need to be authorized to invite workers under this international agreement worker route. And if they are not sponsoring you, if they are not providing you with financial support, you will need to show that you have at least £1,270 in your bank account, and this amount was in your bank account for at least 28 days. And these were 6 temporary UK work visa routes.